Why should you invest in Switzerland? What has Switzerland got to offer for investors? And can we really be excited about Swiss equities? Well, joining me in the studio to discuss all this is award-winning fund manager Beck of New Capital. Thanks for coming into the studio today.
Thank you very much, Thomas.
I was interested to read in a previous interview in which you took part, where the journalist assumed, and I've got a quote here, many clients may consider the market unimportant. He was talking about the Swiss market. Do investors consider it unimportant in your own experience?
Not the Swiss investors, obviously they would tend to have a home bias like most investors. But when we go international, we see that Switzerland is just put together with the rest of Europe. People do decide how much would I put into the US, emerging markets, Europe. And I think Switzerland is a very special place. Whilst it is in the middle of Europe, we have our own currency here. We are ranked for several times by the World Economic Forum the most competitive economy in the world on a list of 180 economies. So I think if you compare Switzerland to Europe, there are a lot of advantages which you can focus on if you focus your investments into Switzerland. And being in the middle of Europe, I understand that people will put it together, but you're just missing an opportunity if you don't take it separate.
Okay, so you're talking more about the international investors there.
Definitely.
You also mentioned in the interview that the country is so small yet strongly entrepreneurial. I think you referenced businessmen in Brazil wearing Swiss watches and so on. What is new, though, that anyone in the finance industry doesn't already know about Switzerland? I mean, it's a financial hub. People know that banks are based here. They must be aware of opportunity here. So what's new about that comment?
Well, it's much more than a financial hub. It's actually the financials. I think that's not the most compelling business models we have to offer here in Switzerland. You mentioned watches. This is something you can't copy the history. Engineers are always afraid that they're getting copied whenever they do something in the emerging markets. If you got a 200, 300 year history, this is uncopyable. In addition, we have a very entrepreneurial surrounding here. I think if you go through these lists of where would you want to live, you got Zurich, Geneva, Basel, everything is here, so it attracts international high potential people. And then as a result, you would see the number of patents per capita is the highest in Switzerland. So it is a very entrepreneurial and very engineering, high engineering level place here. Okay,
just a little quick question though, as don't people know that? Aren't they aware of that? Why would you feel the need to sell that to investors globally that might be already aware of that? Or are they not aware of that?
No, I think, as you mentioned, we were very well known as a financial hub. We are known for Nestle, we are known for the pharmas, Novartis, Roche. And I think the biggest added value you would find here in the equity market is in the mid-caps, in names people don't necessarily know. There are loads of machining companies, industrial companies, which wouldn't come top of your mind. That's why you need a fund manager going to these single companies, meeting them.
Okay, you mentioned equities there. That's your sort of speciality. Why equities? Why Swiss equities?
Well, actually, it started as a coincidence. Like 20 years ago, when I started at UBS with an internship after the university, the first position would be as a trainee in the derivatives trading. And instead of moving on to the planned fixed income stage, I would stay in equities, like 20 years ago. And I still love it. I think if you are invested in equities, you are invested in the company directly. You are a partial owner. And then for my job, this means I'm not only analyzing a balance sheet, financial strength, like the fixed income manager has to do. I have to do this as well. But what I focus on is on analyzing the management. So I'm meeting more than 100 CEOs and CFOs every year. And you don't have to fall in love with all of them, but they're all interesting people. And this is the most fun part of my job, actually. So I'm extremely happy to be in equities, and I tend to stay there for another 20 years.
Okay. You've just as before we finish, as you said that to me prior to the interview, that Switzerland offers opportunities for active fund managers. How does that relate in your experience? In what way is Switzerland better than other countries, or has greater opportunity for active fund managers?
Well, we have this very asymmetric index in Switzerland with these huge mega caps, Novartis, Nestle, Roche, everything above 100 billion market cap. So if you attack this market in a passive way, you got a huge bias towards these two sectors. And there are loads of opportunities with 200 more names where you should turn every stone to find the biggest upside potential. You'll probably find this rather with 200 small and mid caps than with 20 large caps. And the only way to find those pearls is to take a very active approach.
Okay, just before we finish, and I promise this will be the last question, as looking ahead then, what's the next step for Swiss Equities? If someone was looking to follow your advice and take up their own fund and so on, what would be your advice if they were looking to get into equities in Switzerland?
Well, obviously, what I do personally, I just buy my own New Capital Swiss Select Equity Fund. And why do I do that? It's because I have 40 shares in it, and most of them are these small and mid caps, where I think we got much more upside potential than with Nestle's and Novartis, where everybody knows them, they're in every global portfolio. So it's fantastic companies, but they're fairly valued. And the cheaper valued stuff you find with the small equities, with small caps.
Well, thank you very much for coming into the studio today and sharing with us your views about Swiss equities and investing in Switzerland. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thomas.
That's all for the moment here on Dukascopy TV. We've got more interviews on the way, so stay tuned. But for now, bye-bye.